And where was it taken?
At 355 Allison Drive, Northeast, Atlanta, Georgia, 30342.
And we are back, y'all. Go ahead and hit that like button, y'all. This is going to be one of your favorite YSL videos ever. I promise you that, y'all. As you can see from the coming up, Investigator Viverito had the white ceramic Bubba Watson Richard Millet. She had it in her hands, and Doug called her out on it, y'all. Listen, we're going to jump right into the video. Don't forget, if you want to work in the legal field, holler at us. We got you. We've been doing this over 20 years. CareerParalegal.com. Don't forget to hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Subscribe, hit the notification bell, do all the stuff, share this out to your friends, party with us. And without further ado, y'all, let's jump right into it.
Good afternoon, Investigator Viverito.
Good afternoon, Mr. Weinstein.
How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good. As you know, I represent Mr. Kendrick.
Yes, I do.
All right. Let me ask you a few questions. Excuse me. Permission to approach, Your Honor?
Yeah.
I'm going to show you DK16. Do you recognize the individual in that picture?
I do.
I'd like to admit DK16 into evidence.
Submit.
Permission to publish? In Exhibit DK16, who do you see?
Dwayne Carter.
And Dwayne Carter is also known as Lil Wayne, right?
He is.
Okay. In the image that is on the right side of the two photographs,
Yes.
you see his arm there, correct?
I do.
Do you see ESPN on his arm?
I do.
And what do you maintain that the ESPN, or do you know what the ESPN on his arm stands for?
On him, since he's not a member of YSL, I couldn't tell you what that stands for.
But he is not a member of YSL, correct?
Correct.
And yet he has ESPN on his arm.
Correct. Like I could have a star, Bloods could have a star. Different tattoos mean different things to different people.
So the ESPN on his arm could mean ESPN, the sports network, correct?
As not being a member of YSL, yes.
So if you're a member of YSL and you have ESPN on your arm, are you saying the only thing it could possibly mean is your interpretation of ESPN?
That's what I've seen it mean thus far with members of YSL.
And that's the only thing you believe it could mean?
As far as members of YSL, yes.
So the fact that my client was a football star at Grady. Okay. Do you know if my client played football at Grady?
I do now.
Do you know if my client got a scholarship to University of Georgia as a football player?
Objection.
I'm asking if she knows it.
Sustained. You can ask if she knows whether it's true or not.
Do you know if my client got a scholarship to the University of Georgia?
I've heard that.
You've heard that. Okay. And so would you find it surprising that someone that got a football scholarship to the University of Georgia might like ESPN, the network?
I mean, they could like it, but I don't know if I'm sure he likes other TV channels also that aren't tattooed on him.
So if it's tattooed on you, it must mean ESPN, that you're a member of YSL. You just said that Dwayne Carter has ESPN on his arm, but he's not a member of YSL.
Sustained.
You just said that ESPN on Lil Wayne is not a YSL insignia, correct?
Correct. Like I could say, you can see a college sorority girl with a star tattoo on her, right? And then you can go down to the prison and see members of blood gangs with 5-point stars tattooed on them. It's going to we look at everything on an individual basis. So I can't make that determination. When it comes to YSL members, when you see ESPN associated with a YSL member, I have not seen it mean of anything other than every slime play nasty.
And you said you could see a sorority girl with a star on her, correct?
Correct.
And you could see a University of Georgia football player with ESPN on their arm too, correct?
Correct, but they're both not members of a blood gang or YSL.
Okay. Mr. Kokomo, can I get you to come up? May I approach again, Your Honor?
May.
Would you play a piece of that?
Can I stop for a second? Is that going to show my face on camera?
No, we're not going to.
Okay, I just
I'm
want
not
to
going to.
I just want to make sure.
I'm not going to show you.
Okay, yes, absolutely.
Do you recognize that video?
I do.
I'm not going to publish this video, but I'd like to introduce DK15 into evidence.
Okay. It's admitted.
Okay, now I'm going to show you a still from the video.
Sure,
Okay, do you recognize that?
I do.
And do you recognize the individual in that?
That is me. I do.
Okay. I am going to introduce DK15A. And it's redacted. Are you okay with that redaction?
No objection.
Okay.
All right, and that's a still from the video.
Yes, it's
Submitted.
DK15A. It's a still from the video, and it's been redacted to remove the image of Investigator Viverito.
Thank you. It's
Okay.
admitted.
Would you please publish DK15A? Okay. Who is in this still image from DK15?
That is me.
Okay. Do you recall when this was taken?
That was on March 9th of 2020. I'm sorry, May 9th of 2022
And where was it taken?
at 355 Allison Drive, Northeast, Atlanta, Georgia, 30342.
And whose home was that at the time?
The home of Jeffrey Williams.
And where in the home are you?
Should be the master bedroom closet leading to the bathroom.
And in the video that you watched, which I'm not publishing, again, because it has your image on it.
Correct.
What are you doing at that point in the video?
We're inventorying the jewelry and items that are in the home.
Okay. And is this image that is taken, that's part of your inventorying procedure in the home, is that correct?
It's a documentation procedure, yes.
Okay. And do you recognize what you're holding in your hand in this still image?
I do.
And what are you holding in your hand?
A watch of some sort.
Okay. Do you know if do you recognize that as a Richard Mille watch?
I guess, yes.
And that's a pink watch, correct?
It's pink and either pink and light pink or pink and white, yes.
It's a pink band, correct?
Correct.
And it has a white ceramic, I'll call it the body of the watch.
White, or, yeah, I guess it's white if you say so, yes.
Okay. After you took this image
Mm-hmm.
and you did this inventorying process, where did the watch go after this?
If you watch the video in its entirety, we're inventorying everything in the closet. There's a bunch of small boxes everywhere. So if you watch the video in its entirety, you take it and the watch is photographed like this, box is closed, it's taken and put up on the shelf in the upper left-hand corner, and the inventorying continues. And then jewelry starts getting packed up and getting ready for the evidence team to come and take it down to property.
Okay. Since November the 4th of this year, have you spoken to the state about this particular watch, the pink watch with the white band that I've been calling the Richard Mille or Richard Mille watch?
To the state, no, but I've seen the, Twitter coverage of it going missing or whatever you want to.
Maybe
Well, no. I mean, there's a camera in here. They know that it's being live streamed. You just are not supposed to be watching it.
Oh.
And you asked that in the evidence. So
Well,
just keep moving.
I wasn't watching the trial, but my name.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Just keep moving.
Okay.
Unless you need to approach about something else.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. So tell me, and I'd like to know about this. Tell me in the whatever coverage you saw, what did you learn about this watch that came up in this trial?
Sustained. Well, yeah, sustained.
Okay. So after this watch was inventoried and you left it who did you say takes the watch after the inventorying process?
Okay. So if you watch the video in its entirety.
Which I can't show here, but go ahead.
But if you watched it, like I watched it, the watch gets boxed back up and placed up on the shelf, and it gets left there by the team as an accident. It was left there. The home was then turned over to Mr. Williams Sr. and Mr. Garfield Lamond to take possession of the home.
And is it the normal process when you're taking jewelry from the home or high-valued goods that you leave behind a $500,000 watch on a shelf?
First, I don't know the value of it. Second of all, like I said, there were numerous jewelry boxes. It was, if you watch the video, everybody in there had on body cameras. I was made sure I was on camera at all times. There's cameras throughout the home. So you would be able to see if one of us removed a watch, the box remained in the closet. And like I said, the home was turned over to Mr. Williams Sr. and Mr. Garfield Lamond, who were the two people on scene that took custody of the home for Mr. Williams.
Okay, can we go back to my question?
Sure.
Sure. Is it the normal procedure to leave high-valued items behind when you're doing a search and then a seizure pursuant to a warrant?
Objection out of relevance and answer.
It wasn't answered, Your Honor.
Overruled.
I don't know if there's necessarily a procedure on what you take or what you don't. Like I said, it got left behind. There were other things, like other items of evidence that I had asked to be taken, such as photographs and artwork that had relevance to this case that were left behind by the evidence team. It was quite a big operation. There was a hostile crowd gathering at the bottom of the driveway, so we were trying to speed it up to get out of there.
So are you telling me that law enforcement has no procedure with what you do with high-value items that are subject to a seizure warrant?
Objection on relevance, ask and answer.
It's asked and answered at this point.
Okay. So the watch you say was left behind. What else wasn't done according to your instructions at the home that day?
I believe there were two pieces of artwork that were, one was Mr. Williams in a general uniform with snakes on his arm, and then one was Mr. Williams as like the Jesus at the Last Supper with all the people around him that I thought were relevant that were not taken. And like I said, it started to get pretty hostile out there, so we were trying to speed things up.
You said that there were many people with body cams in the
Correct.
home at the time. How many people, approximately at the time of this raid of the home, let's call it that, were wearing body cams?
Almost everybody.
And did these body cams capture Mr. Kendrick within the home?
I believe they caught Mr. Kendrick running from the home.
That's not the question I asked.
They caught him outside of the home. I don't know how to better, I'm answering
Well,
the question.
it's either a yes, no.
No.
Is there body cam image of Mr. Kendrick within Mr. Williams' home?
The body camera image I saw was him running from the home.
Is there body cam image of
No.
Mr.
Answer
Williams
yes or no, and then you can explain.
in the home?
I haven't reviewed it, all of the entry team's body camera, but no.
Okay. Did you see Mr. Kendrick in Mr. Williams' home?
On that, by the time I arrived at the location, the entry was already made. So I did not, no.
You did not? Okay. Did you, there were approximately a half a dozen firearms found within the home, correct?
Correct?
Have you seen any images of Mr. Kendrick possessing any of those firearms?
I have not.
Have you seen any images of Mr. Kendrick near those firearms?
I have not.
There were drugs found in the home, correct?
Correct?
Did you see Mr. Kendrick with any of those drugs?
No.
Did you see Mr. Kendrick anywhere near any of those drugs?
No.
As far as you know, was Mr. Kendrick in actual possession of any of those drugs?
No, I wasn't there when they made entry.
Have you spoken to anyone? No, let me take that back. Did you speak to Mr. Kendrick at all at that time?
I did not.
Okay. As far as you know, did Mr. Kendrick have any of those drugs? As far as you know.
As far as I know, no.
And as far as you know, did he have any of those guns?
I just know he was in the home where they were located at some point that day.
Okay. Let's talk about the mob ties video for just a moment.
Yes.
So in that video, at the very end, right, we have Mr. Kendrick saying, excuse my language, saying, knock it off your big homie bitch, correct?
Correct.
Do you recall how many times that line was stated prior to Mr. Kendrick uttering that line at the very end?
Multiple.
And it was stated by 24 Heavy, Ricky Hill, correct?
Correct.
And I believe he states it 3 times, right?
Correct.
So Mr. Kendrick is just repeating a line that someone else has written or someone else has said. He's repeating that at the end, correct?
I'm not sure who the writing credits go to, but he did say it at the end.
He's not freestyling it in that it's never been heard before in the song, correct?
Well, it wasn't part of the song. At that point, the song had ended, and he yelled it.
But it had been said 3 times before in the song, right?
Right.
So you're aware there's post-editing that lines can be put into music after the song is recorded, correct?
Right, but the context of how he was saying it, the way he said it, wasn't going along with the song.
Ooh, this is interesting. Tell me about that.
It was after the song had concluded, and he kind of yelled it out with Miss Raven, and I forgot who else was with him.
How do you determine that a song has concluded?
The video, the way it's portrayed in the video, I didn't edit it. The way that it's portrayed in the video has ended, and he utters it at the end after the song is concluded.
So what training have you had in music to know, when a song is ended in a particular video, when there's an utterance after a song is ended?
Are you asking me how I know when a song ends?
Yeah, how do you know this in this video? Like you've had training and expertise that tells you when a particular rap song ends and then something is just blurted out afterwards?
I mean, I've listened to the song independent of the video, and that's not on the track.
But it's in the video, correct?
Right, but when the song concludes, it's not part of the track.
Can we put up, I don't know, which one of y'all are throwing up exhibits? Can you put up 512 VV? Yes. Mr. Atkins, thank you so much. Okay. We'll talk about something just a moment while it's going to take a few minutes for this to get pulled up, okay? We'll come back to it, I promise. Again, I'm going to go back to the closet, and I apologize for jumping around.
Sure.
When you're in Mr. Williams, did you call it the jewelry closet?
No, it was a closet where there was a jewelry and other things, money, other things were stored.
Okay. When you're in that closet, do you recall in that video that you mentioned how valuable that watch is when you pull it up?
I don't believe so.
I can play that for you so you can hear that.
You can. If you'd like to.
I'll be careful.
Are we playing the video or just the audio?
I just want to do the audio, so I'm going to make sure we can get that done.
Well, that ought to not pose a problem.
I want to make sure we can technically do that without having an issue.
On it, okay. I mean, he could just play it from his laptop if that's an easier way to do it, as long as the jury can hear it.
Okay, can you turn it up?
Just put a mic next to your speaker on
we can
your
do it from here.
laptop.
We can do it from here.
Ferguson, good slams? Yeah. All right, so just so you know, all the cars, minus the Mustang, contain either thug or guns, name in there.
I'm not sure that's working. There's a lot of an echo there.
Yeah, that's not working.
And there's
Just a show. We'll just play it for you so you can see that. I just don't want to risk your image being shown.
I appreciate you, Ms. Weinstein.
Ferguson, good slam? Yeah. All right, so just so you know, all the cars, minus the Mustang contain either thug or guns, name it. One of the vehicles with one of the horses contain windscreens and
Where do I say it?
I'm gonna put all the jewelry in this. We have an evidence bag.
I have a second.
You don't hear it in there?
I don't make that remark, no.
Okay. What was the first watch?
I made it, like you said, I made it about the first watch that made it to
Made it about
evidence.
the first watch,
Yeah.
which was also a Richard Mille watch, or Mill.
I don't
know how to pronounce it. So you did make it about the first Richard Mille, just not the
That is
second
in
Richard Mille.
evidence.
Okay. But they're both Richard Mille watches, correct?
I mean, there were several much more expensive pieces of jewelry that were there also. And this is not my first case with a lot of expensive jewelry.
Here you go. Did you get it pulled up, Mr. Atkins?
It does.
Oh, great. Thank you. Okay. Let's go back to 512 VV for just a moment.
Okay.
Look at would you read that line below again about running like Ricky?
Yes.
And what is the import of running like Ricky?
It's from a movie,
And what movie is that from?
Boys in the Hood.
And what's happening to Ricky in Boys in the Hood that's running like Ricky has become a meme?
He's getting gunned down in a drive-by shooting,
And what's he doing when he's getting gunned down?
running.
And he's running down an alley, correct?
Yes.
And he's running at a pretty good clip away from the vehicle that is shooting him with a shotgun, correct?
Correct.
Okay. He's not standing on a sidewalk, right?
I didn't insinuate that.
Sorry?
I didn't insinuate that.
No, I didn't say you did. I'm just
Okay,
asking
yeah,
you
no.
a question.
He's running.
Okay. And he's running directly away from the shotgun that's coming out of a car to shoot him, correct?
Correct.
Okay. This picture here of I guess it's Duke, it's Martinez Arnold, correct?
Yes.
And Diamante Kendrick. This is from June 23rd, 2020, correct?
Correct.
And that is approximately 5 years and 5 months after the killing of Donovan Thomas.
Yes, this picture was more so of importance to me to show the alliance between the Crips and YSL.
Oh, that's right. That's a hybrid gang, right?
Correct.
Okay. And a hybrid gang is kind of like a nose of wax, right? It's something that you can twist and pull so that any type of characteristics that you find can meet the definition of a gang, right?
That's not true.
It isn't true. Why wouldn't that be true?
For example, this hybrid gang with Mr. Arnold, this came about when Mr. Keith Troop died, and Mr. Williams gave the eulogy at Mr. Keith Troop's funeral. And if you listen to Mr. Kitchens, he tells the story about how Mr. Williams was put in charge to take care of Mr. Kitchens and guide him, and he's the one that kind of took them under their wing, and it was okay. And Mr. Williams was the first one to cross color lines when it came to gangs here in Georgia, and they were first uneasy with that, but Keith Troop explained to them, no, it's okay, this is something we do now. So that's an example. And the Department of Justice defines hybrid gangs as a gang member's participation in multiple gangs, vague rules and code of conduct, gangs or different gangs collaborating together to commit crimes. And there's several other definitions, but it's not just something I made up. The Department of Justice defines it too.
No, I know. And what I'm trying to understand from you is I've seen multiple gang experts come in here and talk about definitions of gangs and definitions of hybrid gangs. And it just appears that if a group of individuals don't fit your definition of a gang, that they automatically get classified as a hybrid gang.
Objection, counsel is testifying.
I'm asking a question about hybrid gang.
Well,
Can you explain what a hybrid gang is?
yes, it's
Yeah.
I gave you part of it. It's traditionally a neighborhood gang or local gang that tries to take on the identifiers of a traditional gang. Like, I'm from New York. The gangs in New York are much more structured. The gangs in LA, Chicago are much more structured. I apologize, from New York. Um, the gangs are much more structured here in Georgia. You'll see there are neighborhood cliques that will adopt the identifiers, like YSL, for example, adopted the identifiers of sex, money, murder. They were sex, money, murder based in the beginning, but then Mr. Williams decided to do his own spin on it. Like I said, when he was very close to Keith Troop, when he was deceased, he kind of, or prior to that, like I said, if you watch, there's history about it where Mr. Kitchens talks about he was sent to go help out Mr. Williams at one point. And at first he was uneasy, like, oh, do we do this? And he said,
Slow down also.
Yeah,
It's
just-
sustained
yeah.
to hearsay.
and that's,
I'm trying to understand, without giving examples, if you can define hybrid gang.
it is a neighborhood gang that takes on pieces of traditional gangs. And like I said, you'll have individuals from different gangs working together. You will have the mixed use of identifiers, like we've seen through the presentation of evidence here. Like here, this snake and the blue heart for the Crips. Vague rules and code of conduct. Sex, money, murder, bloods have a rank structure. I don't know a rank structure within YSL. So they take pieces of what they like and they put their own spin on it, but are still backed by a traditional gang.
So a traditional gang would have a hierarchy, correct?
Correct.
But you, according to I believe the testimony we've heard, YSL as a gang doesn't have a hierarchy.
They don't have, but the Goodfellas, for example, they have,
I'm asking, let's go back to my question.
Right,
YSL.
right.
Judge, I would ask the counsel to be able to explain her answer. I mean, the witness to be able to explain her answer.
Well, the answer wasn't responsive to my question.
Overruled. Go ahead and ask your question.
Okay.
Okay. YSL does not have a hierarchy as a traditional gang does, correct?
They don't have a set of leadership like roles, no.
Okay. So in that sense, they wouldn't fit into the definition of a traditional gang.
But they're still welcomed by members of the Sex, Money, Murder, Bloods.
Can you just answer my question?
Yes.
Okay. So my question was, they don't fit into the definition of a traditional gang.
Correct.
So instead, they get slotted over to this catch-all category of hybrid gang, correct?
I wouldn't call it a catch-all, no.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Weinstein.
All right. For a minute, let me just ask y'all a scheduling issue. Whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you, Honorable. Please, court. Investigator Viverito, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chart.
Good afternoon. Okay. Let me just start off with something that you said on direct. When did you start working on this case with the DA's office?
I'm trying to think. I got to probably fall of 21, maybe?
Fall of 2021. And in fall of 2021, when you started working with this case with the DA's office, you were in the section or in the working group with under ADA Love, correct?
No.
Okay, who were you under?
Kara Convery was the deputy district attorney at that time.
Okay. All right, and with the DA's office, eventually, you're not with the DA's office now?
Correct.
Okay. But with the DA's office, you worked on this case, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and you worked under Kara Convery. Who else did you work under?
Well, she wasn't on the case, but for the case, I worked under Don Geary.
Don Geary, okay. All right. Now, in your testimony over the last few days, you've spoken about the work that you did on this case with the district attorney's office.
Correct.
And you've given us your opinions about certain things that you learned through your work at the district attorney's office, correct?
Some. I don't know. I don't think I've given many opinions.
Okay. As part of your work with the district attorney's office, you reviewed surveillance videos.
Correct?
Okay. You drafted affidavits for search warrants.
Correct.
You collected evidence from Jeffrey Williams' house.
Correct.
You collected social media posts
Correct.
from various people.
Correct.
You reviewed Mr. Stillwell's phones.
Correct.
You've reviewed music, in this case, by various artists.
Correct.
Okay. In fact, today, I guess you reviewed a video to make a determination of what type of gun is in a picture, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All those things that you did, and there were other things that you did with the DA's office, correct?
Correct.
All right. And you testified that you were asked by Ms. Hilton, how did you notate your work on this case? And then you said that you talked about your search warrant affidavits, that you make them thorough.
Correct.
Okay, but search warrant affidavits aren't memorandums, are they?
No.
Okay, they're not police reports, are they?
No.
Okay. And your explanation, you don't have reports written for the work that you did in this case as a district attorney, with the district attorney's office, do you?
I have, I think, one or two that were witness memorandums, but other than that, no.
Reports about when you were collecting social media posts?
No.
Got any reports on that?
No.
Okay, about whose addresses you were looking at and whose you weren't? Do you have any reports on that?
What do you mean by addresses?
Instagram addresses, or Instagram, which people that you were following on Instagram, which people you were looking at their Instagram, what dates you were looking at their Instagram. Do you have reports about that?
No, but they were compiled, and each date that they were looked at were noted on the photo.
Okay, so we're just supposed to look at the stuff that you compile and bring to court, and that's good enough to let us fill in all the work that you did.
Objection, argument.
Just take your word for it?
It's cross, I'm going to permit it.
I mean, I'm here to explain it.
Okay, well, that's fine, but,
Right.
you know, what if we want reports? Do you have reports?
I said, the DA, now I work at a different facility. When I worked at the GBI, we had a reporting system. The DA's
Okay.
office doesn't have that. So I would, in my affidavits, make them as lengthy. When you see an affidavit of mine, it's pretty lengthy for a reason.
Okay, well, I didn't ask about your search warrant affidavits. I'm asking about reports and memorandums right now. Okay, and you seem to be saying, well, there was no record-keeping software with the district attorney's office that you could memorialize the work you did.
Correct?
Okay, they don't have a typewriter, they don't have computers, they don't have Microsoft Word, they don't have a pad of paper, they don't have pens, they don't have pencils. Is that what you're saying?
They do.
Okay. But you just didn't write any reports about any of this work that you've been testifying over the last 3 days that you did.
I don't really know anybody that would write a report saying, on this date, I screenshotted this picture. On this date, I screenshotted this picture. That's not really a report. That's not an event I would write a report for.
Well, what if I want to know exactly what Instagram addresses, what individuals that you looked at on Instagram, and which ones you didn't, which ones you checked out what they were posting, and which ones you didn't? How would I know if you don't write a report?
Well, if I looked at them, the name would be on the post, and if I didn't, there wouldn't be a picture.
Okay, so again, we're just going with what you say happened years later based on the evidence that you bring into court.
I compiled my findings into a folder and provided it as part of the case file.
Okay. And you didn't write any reports about the work that you were doing in real time, did you?
There's a report for Waters Road, and the rest of the investigation, like the investigation into the stabbing of Mr. Bennett, can be found in pretty lengthy affidavits.
So you wrote a report for Waters Road?
I did.
Were you at the DA's office at that time?
I wrote it on a piece of paper. It was a Word document.
So you were able to make a Word document about that work, just not the other work that you did, like when you were reviewing my client's phone, like when you were collecting things off of social media, like when you were reviewing surveillance videos. You couldn't write reports for those matters.
Today, with a report management system, I wouldn't write a report for screenshotting social media or reviewing a phone. I traditionally put together a PowerPoint or a visual presentation for trial.
Okay, I didn't ask what you traditionally do. I asked what you did do and didn't do.
But that's what I would do that's what I did back at the DA's office, is what I'm telling you. I would do that today with a report management system, as I did without one. Those things are not responding to Waters Road. I wanted to make sure it's better suited to put it in an affidavit because it's memorialized in the clerk's office. Systems can get hacked, hard drives can get lost, things can get deleted, files can get lost. So I prefer to anything that's noteworthy, make sure it's memorialized somewhere.
Things can get lost. That's your explanation? You can't lose something if you don't make it, can you?
Which is why anything regarding my investigation is probably in an affidavit that you have. I've wrote hundreds of pages.
Probably in an affidavit?
If you would give me a case that you're specifically referring to, I can give you an example.
In your affidavits, I would like you to show me an affidavit for a search warrant where you list all the Instagram addresses and people that you checked out in March 2022 when you were pulling their posts. I want to know everyone that you searched.
That was served to you in a discovery folder.
Okay. I have the posts.
Correct. So that's all of them.
All right. I'm not asking for the posts. I'm asking for a list of the people that you searched for.
If you look in the folder, you will see the list of people I searched for.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Mr. Stillwell, you have known him since 2012, is that correct?
Approximately, yes.
He was about 17 at the time?
If that's what the math dictates, then yes.
Okay. You know him to be from the Thomasville area of Atlanta, correct?
When I would encounter him, he would not be. He would be more in the Mechanicsville area.
Okay, fair enough. You know him, and you know personal information about him, correct?
Such as?
You know that he was raised by his grandmother, Betty Jackson.
Yes.
Okay, and you know Betty Jackson is the mother of his biological father.
Correct.
And that's where the Jackson comes from.
Correct.
And the Stillwell comes from his mother.
Correct.
And you know that his mother has never been a part of his life.
Correct.
You know that she was a very bad drug addict.
Objection irrelevant, Your Honor.
It's going to explain communications on the phone.
All right, overruled.
And you know that she's now deceased.
I know that she's deceased. I don't know the circumstances.
Okay. Okay, you know that and Betty Jackson raised Mr. Stillwell, and you've met Betty Jackson before?
I have.
Okay. And you identified her voice on the jail phones.
Yes.
And also in your review of his phone, the extraction of his phone,
Yes.
you saw her number under the name Boss Lady.
Correct.
Okay. You know Mr. Jackson has a 9th grade education, correct?
I do not know that.
Okay. Do you know him to be a high school graduate?
I don't know that.
Okay. As far as his occupation, as far as you've known him, you know, let's be real for a second. You've reviewed his phones.
Correct.
Okay. You saw mentions of drugs, weed, pills in his phones.
For sale, yes.
Okay, for sale, right. Okay. There was indications in his phone that in 2022 he was selling drugs.
Correct.
Okay. And also in his phone, you saw substantial evidence of his aspirations to become a musician, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You've seen social media posts with him and Wooney Lee at the studio.
Yes.
You've seen social media posts where he hashtagged his upcoming projects.
Yes.
You've seen, you saw on YouTube that short video Slap Talk, correct?
That was on his Instagram profile, but yes.
Okay. Did you note at the time that you captured that Instagram post with the song how many views it had?
I did not.
Would you dispute that it was 17,000?
I don't know, so I have no way to.
All right. And you also observed in his phone his communications with other individuals that were rapping, correct?
I mean,
You saw communications with Mooney Lee.
with Mooney Lee, yes.
Okay. And you saw different references and conversations about renting studio time
Correct.
in his phone. Even, we're talking about in March 2022, on March 8th, for instance, there was a discussion about him going to the studio.
Sure.
March 9th, going into the 10th, discussion with Mooney Lee about going to the studio. The Yo is what they call it, correct?
Correct.
Evening of March 10th, discussion of going to the studio run by Mook Tovin.
Correct.
And you know Mook Tovin to be someone who runs a studio, correct?
Producer of some sort, yes.
And you saw the evidence of, you see file transfers on those dates from Mook Tovin and other people transferring audio files.
Correct.
Okay. And that's consistent with someone making music in the studio and then their work being transferred to them at the end of the night by the studio engineer.
Sure, yes.
Evening of March 11th, discussions with Mooney Lee about going to the studio.
Yes.
March 12th, booking a session at the studio.
Yes.
The evening of March 14th, your investigation, and I know that, and we're going to talk about 10 o'clock and Windsor Street, but later on in the evening, talking about midnight, your investigation revealed that Mr. Stillwell was in the studio.
Yes.
In fact, when people were looking for him, he informed his grandmother that he was in the studio.
I don't know if I remember that, but I know he did, after the murder of Schmel Drink, they were at a studio, yes.
Okay. So, and you've observed some of Shannon's music.
I have.
You've observed a lot of music in your profession.
I have.
You observe a lot of music. Let's just
I
put
have.
it that way. You're familiar with drill music, correct?
Yes.
All right. Drill music is something that extends beyond Atlanta.
It does.
It's worldwide, correct?
I know throughout the U.S. I'm not too familiar with it internationally, but yes.
Okay. Common themes of drill music, brutality and violence.
Correct.
Is that fair to say?
Correct?
Okay. Who's the baddest? Who's the toughest? Who's the most powerful?
Correct?
A lot of bragging.
Correct?
Okay. Claims about women, about who gets the most women. Is that a recurring theme?
Yes.
Bragging about the guns people own and carry.
Yes.
Okay. Bragging about how much money people have.
Yes.
Bragging about homicides, whether it's true or not.
Some.
Okay. It's a type of music, and whether you like it or not, and I'm not suggesting you like it, and I'm not suggesting I like it, but it glorifies violence.
I don't know if I would use the term glorifies because there are a number of drill rappers that have been charged with homicide
Okay.
or engage in violent acts. So I don't know if it glorifies. There's two sides. It can glorify it and it can also tell the story. So there's two different sides to it.
Okay, so one side, you know people that are in drill music that have been charged with crimes.
What I'm saying is music of that you're describing often feeds into violence.
Okay, and you don't like that, do you?
I don't
You feel
like
that-
anybody getting hurt.
Okay, and that's fine.
Yeah.
You feel it feeds into violence, okay? And what I'm asking though is when you said it glorifies, you said I know some people who are in drill music that have been charged with crimes.
Correct.
Okay, and you also know a lot of drill music where people claim they did this and claim they did that.
Correct.
All right. And it's not always factual.
No, but being a drill artist doesn't negate the fact that you engage in violence.
Okay. You may.
It could go either way, but being
Right.
a drill artist doesn't negate that fact.
That's fine. Okay. Common terms in drill music, ops,
Correct.
stands for opposition.
Correct.
And that is a recurring theme that you almost hear in every song. Isn't that fair to say?
In every song and almost every investigation that I work, yes.
Okay. And if we, and we're not going to do it, but if we Google and get on YouTube and type in rap ops, we'll see dozens of songs with ops in the title,
Correct?
including by well-known artists.
Correct.
All right. Glizzies. Glizzy is a term that comes up a lot in drill music, correct?
Correct.
It's a gun.
Yes, but I don't know if I've heard that used that much by these folks that we investigated with this.
I'm just
Yeah,
talking about.
it does. Guns do come up, yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's in one of Shannon's songs.
Okay.
Lizard Walk.
Okay.
Okay. And that's another term that comes up a lot in drill music.
Glizzy, blick, fi, whatever you want to call it.
Red light. It's another one that comes up a lot in drill music, correct? Red lights?
I don't hear that as often, no.
Okay. You ever hear of the song Red Light by Future?
I have not.
You heard the lyrics? Yeah, and this shit real out here running through the red light, looking through your rear view and might just sneak up on the car and try to spray you. You hear that? Heard that lyric?
No, but if Mr. Wilburn would have engaged in a homicide at a red light, I probably would have looked into it.
Okay. I didn't ask anything
Well,
about a homicide or Mr. Wilburn. I asked if you've heard the lyric.
But yes,
Okay,
but
well,
it was something I would look at.
Okay. Chalk. Chalk you out. Chalk them up. Slime and chalk. Those are,
Slime and chalk, I'm familiar with, yes.
all right. Those are things that you would hear in drill music, correct?
Slime and chalk, I've heard. The others, I don't know if I've heard.
All right. We heard 5 songs by Mr. Stillwell. Okay.
Yes.
And they were, let's see, Slat Talk, Ran This Money, Bullshit, Lizard Walk, and Red Light.
Yes.
And all those songs, you have identified Mr. Stillwell, and they were in Mr. Stillwell's phone.
Correct.
Okay, and just to be clear, there were other songs in Mr. Stillwell's phone as well.
Correct.
Okay, so we heard 5 of all the songs that Mr. Stillwell had in his phone.
Correct.
And do you know, outside of his phone, how many other songs Mr. Stillwell has made?
I know through the years I've seen him make a few, but I couldn't give you a number.
Okay. Now, with those songs, do you know when they were written?
No, and on direct, I said I can only see the date that they were added to the device.
Right, and you don't, and let's just be clear, the date that they were added to the device was 3/17. There was some sort of file transfer according to the report
Correct.
on 3/17. You don't believe that on the morning of 3/17 he was in the studio making all those songs?
Not to say that 1 or 2 of them couldn't have been made in the days prior, but I can't give you exact dates on them.
Okay. So we don't know when they were when they were made. Do we know when they were written?
No,
Do we know who wrote the lyrics?
we don't.
Okay, and in fact, on one of the songs, Red Light, it says featuring Vito, correct?
Correct.
Veedo.
Correct.
You know Vito to be a songwriter, not an artist, a songwriter for 300 Entertainment, correct?
He could be, yes.
Okay. Okay. Some of these songs that we heard have the typical ops, red light, glizzy, homicide, typical things that are hallmarks of drill music, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, also, in one of the songs, Mr. Stillwell makes reference to his bankroll, right?
Correct.
Okay. Bankroll is the amount of money you have,
Correct.
the wad of cash.
Correct.
All right. And he's bragging about his bankroll.
Correct.
Okay. And that's what he's saying. That's what he's releasing to the public through this song.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Stillwell, do you know him to own a car?
No.
Do you know him to own a house?
No.
Do you know him to be independently wealthy?
I mean, sometimes, yes. He has a lot of money on him.
Okay. His bankroll, is that something that artists often talk about, their bankroll and how big it is?
Sometimes, yes.
Is that always true, that the artists that are bragging about their bankroll is really as big as they're claiming it is in their songs?
That's an individual basis.
Okay. Could it be, you ever heard the term, like my son says it all the time, cap? Like, just made up. Cap.
It could be, but that's not necessarily the case with Mr. Stillwell Jackson.
I'm asking if you've ever heard the
Yes,
term.
I have.
Okay. And artists cap on songs all the time, don't they?
Some do. Some
Okay.
don't.
And Mr. Stillwell, in his songs, was claiming that he had a bankroll.
And he did sometimes. Yes, he did sometimes.
Well, on the phones, you reviewed his phones.
Correct.
You saw him basically begging Miss Alexander to give him $1,500.
But if you listen to the March 16th wiretap call, he talks about all the money he had.
Okay.
And he didn't want to go to jail with all that money. So he had a lot of, it fluctuates from day to day. So I don't know. Some days he has a bankroll, some days he has no roll. So
Okay. Did he have a bankroll? Do you know if he had a bankroll the day he recorded that song?
do not.
Okay. Could that have been Cap?
Could have been. He could have been reminiscing about when he had his bankroll.
Okay. In these songs, while we're talking about Cap, let's see. Mr. Stillwell referred to himself as Big Slime.
Yes.
Okay, you ever hear anyone else refer to Mr. Stillwell as Big Slime?
I'm trying to think. He's been referred to as Big Slime and Life-Size Lizard.
Right, that's what he calls himself.
He's also referred to as that. I've heard him.
Okay. So he was claiming to be Big Slime in the
Correct.
song that he wrote or performed. Okay. Then we got, let's see, Dolly White in one of the songs. Bullshit, right?
Dolly, yes.
She brags about making $201K in a day.
Okay.
Okay. Do you know, is there any evidence that you have that on that day that Dolly White was claiming that she made $201K that day, that she actually made $201,000 that day?
I wouldn't know what day it is to be able to tell you. She could have been on Instagram or somewhere bragging about having 200K. So without knowing the day, I couldn't tell you.
Okay. Do you have any evidence that Dolly White, I'm not talking about Jeffrey Williams, I'm talking about Dolly White, has ever made $201,000 in a day in her life?
I couldn't tell you what Miss Greer makes.
Could that have been Cap?
It could, but it also could not have been.
Okay. So, we talked about the lyrics on Direct. In these songs, Mr. Stillwell never mentioned an infinity.
No.
Never mentioned Diamante Kendrick.
No.
Never mentioned Demise McMullen or Nard.
No.
Never mentioned Justin Cobb or Doo-Wop.
No.
He mentioned being arrested for a homicide and beating it.
I don't want. I'm going to tread lightly on it. I don't know. Can I get some direction on?
He said I beat.
Okay, but I just want to make sure I'm approaching it correctly. I don't want to.
Yeah, I'll ask a very targeted question.
Okay.
He mentioned on Slat Talk, I beat a murder rap.
Yes, he did.
Paid my lawyer $30 for that.
He did mention that.
Okay. He also mentioned beating a homicide on another song, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do you have, the fact is that Mr. Stillwell, he's on trial for that here today. At the time he wrote those lyrics, he had never beaten a homicide.
That's a real slippery slope to explain that. I don't want to say some, if I can get some.
He had never been cleared or went to trial and was found not guilty of a homicide.
Yes. It's.
Yes. So, Mr. Shart asked you a very specific question, and you seem to have answered in a way that surprises everybody. So, we need to get some clarity from you. Okay, so can you listen really carefully to what his question is and answer that question? And then if your answer is still the same, we need to ask some follow-up of you. Okay, go ahead.
In the songs that we reviewed, Mr. Stillwell claimed to have beat a homicide, correct? Or
Correct.
beat a murder rap, beat a homicide.
Correct.
Okay. Did he, in fact, beat a murder rap or beat a homicide, as he claimed?
I think he.
Go ahead and explain it now, because the jury's not in here.
Yes,
We're just
here.
trying to sort out what
I
it
think
is.
from my understanding of Mr. Stillwell back in that time, he was under the impression that the Donovan Thomas case had been, that they were going to beat it, like they were about to beat it, or it was beat, or it wasn't going to be an issue. I didn't want to say that because I didn't know.
Well, that's good that you didn't say
Yes.
that. But that's not the question that he asked
I'm
at
not
the
asking
time.
what Mr. Stillwell thought. I'm
Okay,
asking-
yeah, then no.
And listen
Okay.
very carefully to what he actually, that's not what he asked a minute ago, but you don't have knowledge that nobody else has that he was tried for some other
no, no, no.
murder and got a hung jury or an acquittal, right?
No, Your Honor. I just wanted
Okay.
to make sure.
So if Mr. Shart asks you, has he ever beaten one, and by beaten, I mean, gotten an acquittal or however he phrases it, what would your answer be then?
No, I just didn't know the specific outcome of if it was.
Has he
Dismissed
even
and
been
re-
tried for
No.
another murder?
He
Okay,
has
so
not been
don't
tried.
say, I don't know the specific outcome if he has never been tried for one other than the one he's on trial for right now, okay?
Yeah,
You understand?
I just thought, I didn't know if he meant it was dropped. That was all, Your Honor.
That's not what was asked.
But that's not what he just asked right here, Your Honor. And
I know that. I know that.
I think that's the clarity that needs to be had, because at the time, Mr. Stillwell was on bond for the murder. And so
That is not anywhere near what he asked. He asked, has he ever been tried for and acquitted of murder? Being given a bond before a trial ever occurs does not a yes answer for has he ever been tried and acquitted.
right, but even the question he just asked right now was not that direct.
I know, that's because, I know, but just now what he asked, we're just trying to figure out what it is she might mean. And are you then going to ask?
I'll ask about the bond next.
Okay. So if he asked about bond, then you can answer whatever you know about whether he was released on bond.
I can be
Okay?
respectful of his rights, Your Honor. That's all.
Okay. Does anybody need any more clarity on?
I definitely do, because I think on redirect,
Okay.
I think it becomes very relevant to ask the witness at the time he wrote those songs, is it, based on everything that you know and speaking to him and other people, that did he believe he beat the murder?
I would not let you ask that, because how on earth can she know what is in his head? I mean, you could ask it, but I would overrule it if objection were made.
I understand, Your
Then
Honor.
you point that, if that is in evidence, then you point that out in closing argument.
I think we will put them in now. Okay.
Well, y'all have to make a decision, each of you, as to how you're going to present your case, or. All right. Do we have clarity now?
I think I'm clear. Yes, I'm clear.
Tell me, you're going to ask your first a direct question about whether or not he's been tried and convicted. You're going to ask that direct question first, and then you're going to ask about the bond. Okay.
And then, I mean, Mr. Abadi, you suggested that you might then introduce evidence that he said what were you saying?
Well, I think I have to find the call, but I think that creates the questions on redirect that then can be asked is, at the time that he wrote those songs, had he been on bond for a number of years? I mean, he makes all of that very relevant as it relates to diving into why he said that in the lyrics of the song. But I think the whole point of this is a very slippery slope, because we begin to talk about things that I don't necessarily we all want to get into as it relates to objections and objections for mistrial, because all of these questions allow us to then ask on redirect the specifics as it relates to when he made the song and being released on bond, things of that nature that you can argue as to the belief as to why he believed he beat the murder, because it had been 3, 4, however many years. So he had not.
Well, you can ask that had he been on bond 3, 4, however many years. What you cannot ask this witness is, so then do you think he believed he beat it? I mean, that is something that this witness can't testify to, that I know of. If you have some reason to believe you think she can testify to that. But I mean, if it's just, I can put 2 and 2 together, he'd been out for 17 years on bond and not been, tried yet, then that's something that is not beyond the ken of any juror, and you can argue that in your closing, but you can't ask this witness that question, okay?
Yes.
Everybody clear now?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, we'll get the jury back. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, Investigator Viverito, I'm going to go back to where we were before. In those songs, in Slat Talk,
Correct?
Mr. Stillwell says, I just beat a murder rap, paid my lawyer $30 for that.
Correct?
Okay, and in other songs he says, I beat a homicide. Mm-hmm. Okay. My first question. To your knowledge, in this case, I'm talking about Donovan Thomas.
Correct?
Had Mr. Stillwell ever been acquitted or the case been dismissed?
No.
Okay. The case was still open, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So he had not, in fact, beat a homicide.
Correct?
He had not, in fact, beat a murder rap.
Correct?
Yet he claimed that on his songs.
Correct?
Also, he claimed to pay his lawyer $30 for that. Do you know if he actually paid a lawyer anything?
I don't believe he's the one that paid the lawyer, but a lawyer was paid.
Do you know a lawyer's been paid?
At some
What
point.
lawyer?
He was represented at some point.
What lawyer?
I don't know which lawyer he was. I said at
Well,
some
you just
point.
said you know the lawyer's been paid, and now I'm asking you what lawyer?
Okay. A lawyer back then would have been paid for him. I don't know.
What's the lawyer's name? Since you had an opinion on it,
You-
that lawyer had been paid, what is that lawyer's name?
All I said was, Mr. Sharp, if he had a lawyer, they would have had to have been paid somehow. I don't know how or who.
Okay, so you don't know how much anyone.
I did not work on the Donovan Thomas case at all.
Okay, but you just gave an opinion on it, and so you don't know how much, who, or how much anyone had been paid.
I just said I don't know who his lawyer was or how much or how they were paid.
The reality is Mr. Stillwell was released on bond.
Yes,
He didn't beat a murder rap. He had been released on bond.
yes.
Okay, so claim I beat a murder rap, that was cap.
If you want to call it cap. I would say incorrect, but sure.
Claim that he paid a lawyer 30 for that, we don't know. We don't even know who the lawyer is.
Correct?
Okay? He also said in Lizard Walk, bond was $500,000 N-word. Remember that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know Mr. Stillwell's bond in the case that he paid for Donovan Thomas? Do you know it to have been $500,000?
Believe it was almost, not $500,000, but it was a very high amount.
Okay, was it $500,000?
I think, if I remember correctly, it was 300,000.
Was it $500,000?
It was not.
Okay, so that was incorrect. That was cap as well, correct?
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Stillwell, since October 2015, has been charged with the Donovan Thomas murder, correct?
I'm not sure the exact date he was charged, but
Late 2015?
sure.
Okay. And in these songs, he openly talks about being charged for that murder, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And he talks about the money he paid lawyers.
Sure.
He talks about the money, the extravagant amounts of money that he paid for bond, $500,000.
Sure.
Okay. I'm not saying you like it. I'm not saying I'm like it. Do you deny that potentially an artist, an aspiring artist, being charged in a high-profile case, beating a high-profile case, paying large amounts of bond, would be something that would be appealing in the world of drill music? Do you deny that?
No, engaging in violence and homicide skyrockets you to the top of the corporate ladder in drill music.
Okay. And he was saying he had been charged and
Correct.
beaten.
Correct?
Okay. Mr. Atkins, could you, or Mr. Abate, or Miss Hilton, could you do me a favor? Or Miss Knight's back. 436 VVA, please, if you could display that for me. Okay, this is my client, correct?
Correct.
And, again, this is him while he's trying to be an aspiring artist, correct? This time period?
I guess.
Okay. And first of all, let me just clarify one thing. In the background, we see a gas station. That is the gas station on Cleveland Avenue, correct?
I believe that's 221 Cleveland.
Okay. That's not McDaniel Street.
No.
Okay. Now, Mr. Stillwell, in this post, also makes reference to Donovan Thomas, doesn't he?
He does.
Okay. He makes reference in the hashtag Peanut Stone Grave.
Correct.
Okay. Publicly, he is tethering himself to that incident.
Correct.
Okay. And in the message he writes, in the caption, it says, "I fell off 100 times, 100 times I bounced back." Okay.
Correct.
Let's talk about some things that happened prior to this post about falling down 100 times. Mr. Stillwell, prior to this post, had someone drive by the green store and shoot at his head, did he not?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Stillwell, prior to this post, was driving in a car with a young lady named Tiara Jones and another lady named Ms. Duncan, and a car sped up behind that car and started shooting at them, correct?
Correct.
And killed Tiara Jones and put Mr. Stillwell in the hospital.
Correct.
Mr. Stillwell, after he spoke to the investigators about the Tiara Jones case, was attacked on social media for talking to the police.
Correct.
All those things happened before he made this post about falling off 100 times and bouncing back.
A lot of things happen, yes.
Okay. Does this post ever say, I killed Donovan Thomas?
No, but he's attaching himself to the incident.
You're absolutely right. He's attaching himself to the fact that the police arrested him and people have been attacking him ever since. Isn't that true? I've been knocked down, I fell off 100 times, and 100 times I bounced back.
Objection, speculation.
Sustained.
Okay, I'd like to talk to you about some of the work you did in collecting the posts from social media. And again, I don't mean to harp on this. Maybe I'm not asking correctly. I understand that you have given how many total social media posts did you pull within a folder?
I don't know. They were all compiled into a folder of relevant posts.
Okay, you say relevant posts.
Correct.
So who determined if they were relevant?
If they had anything to do with the hyper-violent back and forth, I felt that they were relevant to the investigation.
Okay, again, I'm going to ask, who determined if they were relevant? Who?
It's just that if I felt like they were
So
anything,
you determined.
from
you
as being the person that's listening and monitoring the wiretap and knowing the ins and outs of what's going on, I was able to determine what was relevant.
You determined what was relevant.
Correct.
Okay. And I understand that we have a thing of posts. What I want to know, when you're on Instagram, do you have notifications set for when people post? Are you scrolling Instagram? Are you looking at certain people's pages and not other people's pages? How are you doing it?
We were monitoring both sides of the conflict, and it's not just me. There are several people that would monitor. We'd all look together
I'm
collectively.
talking about the social media posts.
Correct. We were monitoring both sides. Part of my job is to mitigate violence. So as a conflict is occurring, we're monitoring both sides of the conflict. So when we see, it's a constant job of monitoring to where if I see YFN down on Cleveland Avenue, which a bunch of assault rifles, probably not great. So we need to monitor constantly to say, okay, we need to get marked units down to Cleveland to mitigate that. So we're constantly, I have a unit that I work with. Everybody was involved in the wiretap, the investigation. So everybody was tuned into what was going on.
Who's in that unit?
I mean, the gang unit, there's a bunch of people. I couldn't tell you give you a roster at that time. It's changed, but.
Okay, well, if we had reports, could we know who was on that unit? Since
They
it
wouldn't.
changed.
I don't know anybody in our gang unit that would give you a report of every social media post they screenshot.
Okay, well, I didn't ask if anyone in the gang unit would. I asked if you did. Did you write a report about exactly which users you were following to pick up specific posts?
Mr. Short, you've asked me that before, and I've told you I've compiled every user you see in the folder is who I was monitoring.
Okay. And what about is there no one else that you were monitoring that's not in the folder?
That folder pretty much covers a whole lot of people.
Okay, and we just take it from you. No reports.
Whether you have all the posts, that I captured. They're in a folder, gathered, collectively organized in a folder for you. So I don't know what, do you want a list of screen names that were captured?
Just want documentation of the work you did.
It's documented in a folder that was served in discovery.
Some of those posts that you deemed relevant are actually lyrics to songs, correct?
I'd have to see what you're referring to.
Could you, Ms. Knight, could you display 471 VV? 471? Okay. This is Mr. Nichols, Comarvius Nichols, right?
Correct.
Okay, and 471 VV is exactly how the state has put this into evidence.
Correct.
All right, and we're going to get back to exactly what this is in a little bit.
Correct.
But those words, what you saying, I run with cold-blooded killers, okay? When are you saying that you collected this?
Probably 2 days or a day or two after the murder of Mr. Drinks.
Okay. And those words, those were written by Mr. Nichols?
No, it's a song by NBA Youngboy that he used he chose those words to put on the post 2 days after Mr. Drinks was killed.
He chose those words?
So what this is it's an Instagram story, and you can select a song and which portion of that song. You can select anywhere from 10 seconds to 30 seconds, and you select that, and you can overlay it onto your story. That's what was done here.
Those words?
Mr. Nichols made the social media post, and in the post, he picked this song to accompany his post.
All right, you know what? We're not going to get back to this. Let's deal with this right now. Mr. Kokomo, if you would, what is it, 60? Yes, 60. Okay, Your Honor, may Mr. Kokomo approach?
Yes.
This is what Mr. All right. You need to show it to Investigator Viverito. Okay. Start from the beginning. Go.
We're going to hear the audio?
We can.
Yeah, so that is a screen. Oh, can I explain?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Kokomo, I think the witnesses had sufficient time to view it. So thank you, Mr. Kokomo. Do you recognize what's been marked as 60 VV?
Yes, it's a video of his story in its entirety.
Okay. And is that the way you saw it on social media?
It was both a video that was submitted in discovery and a photo that was submitted. The relevant portion of that would have been relevant to our investigation was that you're posting a video the day after somebody's murdered in your presence.
We haven't even gotten there yet. Do you recognize
Yes.
that video? Okay. Your Honor, I would move to admit DS-60 into evidence.
Admit it?
Permission to publish.
You may.
Your Honor, may we report before it's published?
Yes.